Welcome, everybody, to our current issue of Conversations in American Democracy. You'll note we are in a new venue here at Olive Garden in Palm Coast on Route 100, and we are away from the golf course clubhouse while they are renovating their kitchen. So we'll ultimately probably go back there, although we can decide and make that decision ourselves, depending on conditions. So we started last week, and we're attempting to bring a little bit more order to our discussions, but I think disorder also has its benefits. Nonetheless, part of the order at the beginning of the last meeting, I read something from the U.S. Constitution. I want to continue reading, but once again, note that I started with Section 1 of Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, period. The executive branch, the president, and he might think, he does think otherwise, thinks that he can make law through executive orders. The executive orders only apply to the executive branch and do not apply to the people. So I'm going to read actually from an original constitution just to get some sense of how far we've come. So it's not the current constitution, but we'll get to that. So going on from where we left off, representative and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states and may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, excluding Indians, not taxed, and 3/5 of other persons. And now I'm going to something that's currently in effect. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of Congress of the United States, and with every 10 years, that's why we have a census, every 10 years, a subsequent term of 10 years, in a manner that by law shall be directed. The number of representatives shall not exceed one for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least one representative. And until such enumeration shall be made, the state of New Hampshire is entitled to 3 representatives, Massachusetts 8, Rhode Island and Providence Plantations 1, Connecticut 5, New York 6, New Jersey 4, Pennsylvania 8, Delaware 1, Maryland 6, Virginia 10, North Carolina 5, South Carolina 5, and Georgia 3. So that everybody has representatives, but each state has to have one. So what's the population of Wyoming?
600,000?
500 to 530, yeah. I think, 1,000. They have one representative. Maxwell Frost represents a large part of Orlando. How many people does he represent? Close to 700,000. So the people of Wyoming are a little bit overrepresented, and these districts, of course, cannot cross state lines. And now, since before World War I, the limitation is the Congress, the House of Representatives, will have exactly 435 members. So as we grow as a country, our population, each representative will represent more people. And once again, our representative is Randy Fine. You need to know that Randy Fine is our. And in fact, I had hoped that other people would be here to talk about this on Monday in front of the county building. Is it at noon? What time is there will be a gathering. Randy Fine will be there. He's hosting a Memorial Day ceremony. The speaker is a very right-wing Christian, and I have on behalf of, good to see you, Joe, I have on behalf of Americans United for Separation of Church and State, and I'll share that letter with some of you if you'd like to let me know. I'll send it to you. Expressed our hopes that this Christian preacher and this event that happens on Memorial Day will not make people who are not Christian feel as though they are second-class citizens here. So that if this guy ends with a prayer in the name of Jesus, that clearly indicates to those who don't believe in Jesus that we are second-class citizens or not as desirable or not as invested in the city. So, and I did that on Friday, and I have yet to receive any indication about anything. If I do, I'll let you know. So I plan to be there to see, or certainly to watch in some way to see exactly how exclusive it is. At the same time, Randy Fine, and I think we need to define him, Randy Fine is prepared to vote to reduce and in some cases eliminate Medicaid so that billionaires can have a nice tax cut. Okay? But you don't have to worry. The grandchildren of Donald Trump, they're going to have health insurance. That's a joke.
Did that missive about Memorial Day go to the city council as well?
No, by the way, it's hosted by the county commission. It went to each of the commissioners individually. I sent 5 different ones to each one, and in particular, actually I think it went to Andy Dance twice because he's the chair of the commission. But they've all received it. None have acknowledged it. When they do, I'll let you know. I'm sure it's uncomfortable. On the first Thursday of May, every year, is National Day of Prayer. And there was in this county, it was always held very early in the morning at the Hilton Garden Inn. There was a breakfast to celebrate the National Day of Prayer, and it was sponsored by Sheriff Staley. And we continued, and it took several years of complaining and calling out the issue of separation of church and state, and now that does not occur. So I don't imagine we're going to have great success immediately, but if we begin to call it into question, then we hope to make some progress towards enhancing the separation of church and state. Certainly not establishing, to use the First Amendment words, not establishing Christianity as the religion of Flagler County. No, that's our goal.
Well, the fine is going to be there. People wanting to come, with signs.
I was hoping Vicki would be here to report on that. Okay. I think she had initially intended to, save Medicare, save Medicaid, or something along those lines, to come with signs, but I don't know, and I was hoping to have a report from her. I will shoot her an email and I'll share it with everybody and let you know what time. Come with signs, come to protest.
I know they have a thing tonight, sip and social.
Yeah, right. There's a social. At
the might be
right at the Q note, whatever the name of the place is, beneath the Democratic headquarters. So that's number one. Yeah, Vicki was going to report on Belvedere terminals. I, on her behalf, wrote to Heidi Petito, the county administrator, as to whether or not, if Bunnell decides that they want to have Belvedere terminals, then does the county have any say in it? And Heidi Petito said it depends, A, on the Bunnell charter. By the way, one of the reasons it could not come to Palm Coast is Palm Coast was not allowed to make any more than a 3-year commitment, and Belvedere terminals needed a 10-year commitment. And so we were restrained by the charter. But then there's the question of whether the state will supply funds, and if the state does supply funds, then it will need approval by the county commission, and that's where we can put pressure. If we're not constituents of Bunnell, my sense is, and I knew rather well at one time a Bunnell commissioner, all these people don't give a damn if we're not their constituents.
What about the traffic? I mean, the number of trucks and some of the stuff that they're carrying is going to be dangerous. They're going to have to come through Palm Coast to get onto 95, right?
There is no question that it's bad for all of us. But a further wrinkle, because Trump has come out and certain leaders have come out against the proposal in California to ban the sale of gasoline-powered cars in California starting in 2030. And California has accepted that, which indicates that the kind of energy that Belvedere Terminals is going to be passé ultimately. That's old school technology to use internal combustion engines. The new school technology is electric cars. Belvedere Terminals is no more necessary than having them build a factory to make 8-track tapes. It's old technology, or what Betamax tapes, videotapes, or any of that. It's all outmoded. So there are 100 reasons why Belvedere Terminals is not good. In their defense, the city fathers and mothers of Bunnell say they're going to pay a lot of taxes. We'll be able, therefore, to keep the tax rate in Bunnell low. And that's what their thinking is. So that's going on. We have other things to talk about, but let's turn to Mark. Any updates on what's going on at Palm Coast City Council, Palm Coast City Government, briefly?
Well, first of all, there had been an effort, several commissioners or council groups to put a prayer at the beginning, and that was defeated.
Yeah.
And now they have a moment of silence for you to think about your grocery list or pray to whatever God you have or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So that's an example.
No, I actually spoke at that meeting.
Yes,
And
to change it.
Coach and I had a separate meeting with the mayor, Alphin, at the time,
Right.
to discuss it. Winning the day, by the way, was Nick Kloufas, who's no longer in government, but he said we could have a moment where we'd have a Christian or some kind of prayer, but each of you has 3 minutes to speak. You can make a 3-minute invocation if you like.
And some do.
And some actually
Some do.
So anyway, go ahead.
So
What's
I
that?
was not able to attend the meeting. It was, I watched it on YouTube. You all need to pay attention to that. I know Mark was there and made some comments about a final approval of a storage facility, which the board Mark is on turned it down because we have enough storage facilities in Palm Coast. They were overridden because the builder and the manufacturer came in and actually, in my mind, pretty much dared the city council to block it. And our own attorney pretty much said the city has no authority without hitting these 3 or 4 elements to stop a building effort that's gotten as far as this one had, as it had already gone through, been turned down by you. And I'm sure Mark could address that scenario. The mayor was not there. He was not even on Zoom or anything. And
Would they say anything about why he wasn't there? Or he
Nope,
didn't
not a
mention
word.
it?
nope,
If they knew why he wasn't there, they weren't saying that.
no. And Council Member Gambaro, in his closing arguments at the end of it, read the same letter he had published in the newspaper about how he felt things were going on within the city. So it's continuing to have drama, but I do have one other issue I wanted to tie into. Reverend Shriver, who is speaking, who is part of the DAV, which I used to be a member of.
What's the DAV?
The DAV is the disabilities.
American veterans.
Mer-
Veterans who are disabled.
What's that?
The veterans who are disabled.
It's a veterans. It's a group in Palm Coast. They serve veterans, and they do a really good job. But they're a 501c3 as well. And in their monthly meetings, a prayer, a Christian prayer by this gentleman would be said to start the meeting. And I was in part learning to be a service writer or an assistant to help disabled veterans file claims. I was very uncomfortable with it, and ironically, I just read the DAV charter, which said none of that was allowed because their charter reflects AU's charter of we don't get involved with politics or religion. And
It's covered by the same 501c3, but
Yes.
AU, I shouldn't say it has the same discomfort, but is a DAV meeting, a meeting of veterans, beginning with a prayer, is not a violation of the U.S. Constitution.
No, it's not.
Because
But it's a
government-
violation
it's
of
a number-
their
right.
internal-
It's not a government agency.
Right.
We may all be uncomfortable, it's not unwise, but they can do it. Go ahead.
but it's a violation of their internal charter. And I brought that to the Commodore, and said he's in violation. And his response was, we allow all members of DAB a moment of time to step up and speak about whatever they wish. Sound familiar? And so I no longer participate with the DAV because there are too many vets in the world that don't care about politics. They want health. They want service. They need support. So I just wanted to add that. I've had my
Thank you.
run-in with
Right.
Mr.
Okay.
Reverend Shriver.
Well, thank you. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Monday.
No.
Speaking of local politicians in particular, Joe, of course, has graciously volunteered to be the treasurer of a PAC that we would form to collect money and help candidates who are, we use the word liberal, or should I use the word progressive, who are our kind of people, to convince them to run for office and to help support them. Joe thought it best, and I agree, that we find an attorney. The go-to attorney for this kind of thing in our community is former Sheriff Jim Manfrey. So I asked Jim Manfrey, and he actually said he expects to be with us at lunch next Wednesday, and if we need to meet with him before about the steps of how to form a PAC. So that we meet, it's a government issue, and there are all sorts of laws and rules, and by the way, penalties that if you don't report on time and so on. So thanks to Joe, we will have Jim Manfrey here next week.
So Jim did get back to you?
Jim, didn't he come?
He copy me.
I apologize. I thought you were on that. He wrote to me and said he would
So
be
we're
here.
going to get together.
We're going to get together either within the meeting. He'll spend time in the meeting talking about how to form a PAC, and if that's not sufficient, he'll meet with the two of us afterward.
That's probably
So
better.
yeah.
We'll get more done.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Plan on after.
Okay,
Yeah.
plan on after, and just the two of us. Not a
Marky
problem.
Murphy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to if possible.
Okay.
Just,
All right, come along. Yeah, Eddie, you know,
Very passionate about what we're trying to do.
I am eager to encourage ownership that this will all belong to all of us.
Yeah.
And that it's
Probably
not just one
better,
person.
so you can make a report at the meeting real quick
Yeah.
about what already happened.
Exactly, and then we need to decide whether we're going to have a bake sale or sell light bulbs, or what we're going to do to raise money to fund this PAC, so that
Okay.
when people run, we can say we encourage you to run, and we want to encourage you with this gift of $2,000 or whatever it is.
Well, we can do like a one-page info sheet that we can email to people,
Yeah.
or to distribute,
There are all sorts of methods. We just need to get the basic run and approval
Gotta be
of,
set up.
in effect, Katie Leinart, the
Right.
supervisor of elections. So my next question is, I want to know what you think of Rick Scott, our senator. Our senator who voted to consent to the nomination of Kristi Noem as head of the Department of Homeland Security, a person who does not know what habeas corpus is, and when quizzed about what was in one article or the U.S. Constitution here or there, had not a clue. I don't know whether you saw it on TV. It's been both on Sirius TV and the comedy shows at night are also. I mean, just how could Rick Scott? So the issue, by the way, there's another issue. That is, we can concentrate on Kristi Noem. That's a national issue. But her name will not appear on our ballot ever. It's going to be a long time, I believe. Did we just at this last election vote Scott in? So it's going to be 6 years before we...
Moody is up this time around.
Yeah, she did not vote. She was not in the Senate at the time that they voted for. But it's true. These people are just off the rails as far as I'm concerned. How did a group of incompetent people get to run our government? Let's put it that way. By the way, Joanne Horn sends her, and she says, although it was the outage at Newark, New Jersey's airport, Liberty Airport, that you flew out of but they wouldn't fly back to, occurred very early. There's no question that the Department of Government Efficiency cut too many air traffic controllers, and in this case, too many technicians that work on their old equipment that hasn't been updated because Congress hasn't approved that earlier.
Experiencing the
She
same problems.
thought in particular about Denver was a more frightening issue for her than.
And the NOAA didn't have enough people to track the 12 tornadoes that were barreling through.
And so, how did so many incompetent people get in these positions?
And they're going after non-profits now.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing I read about
And Bruce Springsteen, by the way, for New Jersey.
Yeah.
Am I the only New Jersey person?
on that issue, it's because they're performers. A lot of them, came from Fox. And it's not about the country at all. It's about performance art that's going on right now out in Washington, D.C. It's just what it is. It's how can a group of people become obscenely wealthy off the backs of everybody else in this country.
That's what these tariffs are about. He makes the tariffs. People sell the stocks in a panic. They buy them up,
Yep.
and they make even more money.
There's an old saying, follow the money, but it's never been more true than in this case.
Attorney General is now the U.S. Attorney General.
The DEI hire, yeah.
Yeah, right. The DEI hire.
She was grabbing down $110,000 a month from Qatar as a lobbyist.
Right. Okay. Qatar, the main support of Hamas, by the way. But,
The one issue that is related to this, the question of whether you can call Trump's positions and actions the move of an authoritarian. I think the clearest indication, and the one that troubles me the most recently, was when I don't know who the two gentlemen were. There were two people in the in our security divisions who came out and in their report said that it was not the Venezuelan government that was supporting Trinagua. That's how he invoked the Aliens Act, right? And our security agency said, we did an investigation, we don't see any link between the government and the crime group. And so those two guys were fired. Now,
Yes.
So what you have is, you're talking about the guys that are in charge of the security of the United States. If Trump blah, blah, blah something, you are now, if you're the next guy up there, are you going to come out and tell the truth to the American people? Or are you going to just lay back and let the authoritarian continue? And it's clear.
And Trump goes to Congress.
If you
and
go,
threatens
if
them.
you have facts, if you have the truth, and your truth disagrees with what the president said, you're fired.
Yep.
That's pretty in your face.
And even more, as far as the authoritarian goes, is on the front of the Department of Agriculture's building is a giant, huge, several stories high portrait of Donald Trump hanging on the building with a frowning face, just like Stalin and Hitler and Kim Jong-il. Okay, I'm sure it was put up there so it could be part of the parade where they're going to demolish the streets in Washington, D.C. with their missiles and their tanks for his birthday, like we're Moscow.
So that's corruption on a federal level. Should DeSantis be investigated for money laundering by shuttling $10 million?
He should be
That was
investigated.
so blatant.
That's going forward.
Yeah, I think that is going forward.
Yeah.
What
I
is
just was
this?
reading an article about his fall from grace, how he used to be the fair-haired boy,
Yeah.
almost next in line, the fall from grace, and how far did he come, and the fact that with it took his wife, who he was grooming to be
The next governor.
his the
Successor.
follow-up, What is it called again?
Like the former governor of Alabama who got
Right.
shot and had his wife
Yeah,
as governor for 2 terms. But he should be investigated, and for more than that, as far as I'm concerned, dereliction of duty. After that Tampa hurricane, where entire Fort Myers was almost obliterated.
It's on the Gulf, by the way, it's on the Gulf of Mexico coast.
Right, yeah. After, he did a short tour there, he was right back to his presidential campaign. The hell with Florida. We were in the middle of a really horrific insurance crisis, to say nothing of the Fort Myers crisis, and there was something else going on which I can't recall at the moment. But it was really important for Florida. And where was he? He wasn't in Florida. He wasn't concerned about what was going on here. He was busy with his campaign. And he was supposed to be our governor first.
I really think it should be, if you're going to run for higher office than the one you already have, you have to step down from the one you have so somebody could actually be there doing the job.
He had to do a special bill just so he could do it.
You're right, because
And
we
the
have a
legislature backed him up.
Yeah.
That was
That
wrong.
was
And then
that
they-
was the law in Florida
Then they made
until
it
he
illegal.
got that
resigned to
changed.
run.
Then they made it illegal for anybody to track DeSantis' airplane,
Right.
Right.
so nobody
But
could know
you
where
were
he was
talking
at.
about Rick Scott. I was reading. It was on a YouTube video, financial, and they were talking about the Medicaid issue that's going through the House and eventually get to the Senate, and they're talking about which senators are for and against. And Rick Scott is clearly for moving the bill along to reduce. And they had done a study, and it was amazing, and it felt so logical when it was said out loud. The state of Florida is like the third or fourth state to have Medicaid covered individuals at all ages for whatever reason. If they reduce half of those coverage people, those people will still have needs, of which Rich Scott knows about because of his Medicare and his investment into hospitals. And they had done an assessment that if the number of 3 million, 2 million, because there's like almost 22 million people in Florida, became uncovered, uninsured, had no insurance.
They'd be thrown out of their nursing homes.
But they'd still have health care because by law in the state of Florida, emergency rooms have to treat and accept everybody. So they were saying that theoretically 10 times the amount of money that the state thinks it would save by reducing people off of Medicare, they would lose to support those people still getting treatment.
So our
And
health
he
insurance-
knows this. He understands this. So it's kind of like we all know that the value of preventative care is way cheaper than treating the actual issue, like we're seeing with our ex-president Biden and his prostate thing and all of that. We all know at our age, preventative care is a critical and important thing that we do. And this study was saying that most states, including Florida, if this change gets approved and signed by the president, that the red states will be obliterated with cost of uninsured citizens still needing care.
Plus we're gonna have all the education problems. But the don't they send that money as a block and then the state figures out how to do it? Because Louisiana did take it out on the people that were in nursing homes.
Yeah.
There were a
Right.
couple thousand
There won't be
people.
any money coming.
And DeSantis and Scott before him as governors turned away. There are 40 states who took advantage of the Medicaid supplement
Extension,
and
yeah.
extension, and our Florida
Are
did
gonna-
not.
Yes.
Yeah, Missouri was like that. The governor of Missouri turned it away.
Whatever, right? Republican governors, exactly.
Yeah.
Republican governors.
And RFK now says if you're under 65, you don't need COVID shots.
Oh, I saw
Oh,
that.
yeah, today, that was this morning.
That's good. That's going to help.
But yet he's on film. He said nobody should be taking medical advice from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
If you
And the other
change,
thing about
Joe wants to speak.
Wait a second, Joe,
James.
Donna.
First thing he said that we agree with.
Yeah, right.
try it.
One more time.
It was the worms, it was the worm speaking.
The D to an R, and you have a meeting of these people, you can justify the cuts to Medicaid just like that. We're going to take off people that don't have work requirements. We're going to do this, and it sounds all plausible if you want to buy the bigger story. And the bigger story is there are unworthy people in this country, and we all know who they are.
How are the
It's been going on
disabled
for
going to
a
get?
long time.
How are disabled going to get jobs when they eliminated all the programs that were to help the disabled with the jobs, and they got rid of all of the work from home things, which was a program that was put in there for veterans and the disabled, and they eliminated it. So where the hell are these people going to work?
You know, I keep saying I oversimplify, and I do, and I know I'm guilty of it. But all you need to know is just look at South Africans being
Oh, white ones, yes.
golden passports into the U.S. who are already talking about having their own state. Right? I mean, it tells you all you need to know.
Because those poor white people are the victims of
We
genocide.
can talk everything
Yeah,
else
yeah.
up.
That, what were we gonna say?
Well, the conversation has moved a little bit, but
Yeah.
Mark mentioned Missouri as in terms of Medicaid.
Yeah.
The voters of Missouri voted to keep or get Medicaid funds from the government. And then the governor overrode that and said
Right.
no.
Yeah, I think that's universal, that when the governors overrule it, the people want it, but the government says that, that's, Rick Scott, I remember saying, this isn't free money, we have to pay for this, so I'm not gonna take it. Yeah.
And where's that money coming from? The blue states.
Yeah, and in the end, as Mark.
Well, Rick Scott put out a pamphlet. He had 10 items
Yeah,
that he wanted to get rid of: Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. He doesn't care.
yeah, they want to zero it out, then restart it.
They touch my
at some
Social
other
Security,
figure.
I'll
Yeah.
burn the place
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, I mean, they're out of
The banks
control.
don't want our properties.
Yeah.
If everybody loses our Social Security, millions of people will not be able to pay their bills
The
or
banking
their
system will
mortgages.
collapse.
Yeah.
And so the banks don't want all these houses to come
They
back.
want those houses back.
And so they're gonna, what's gonna happen is we're gonna have a financial
The banks.
collapse.
Well, we're on our way anyway, huh?
Yeah, well, that's the alienation of Wall Street. Wall Street and Trump were good buddies at one time, and now he's alienating them and so on. I don't know what the stock market's doing today,
Put a
but
fox in every hen house.
yeah, right.
Well, it is interesting, if you look at the non-political actions on the financial side, a week ago, Moody dropped the rating of the United States because of our debt ratio, and the next day,
They upped it $4 trillion.
Yeah.
interest rates to buy a home went over 7%. So how does that affect you and me here in Palm Coast?
Yeah.
Part of the conversations they were having in the meeting yesterday was trying to get the builders to pay full fare up front of all of their fees instead of waiting for them to pour foundations in preparations for selling these homes. So why do you think that is, that the city is trying to force a 400 house developer to pay the fees up front, knowing that developer may sit on that cleared lot for years, because they're not gonna pour one slab until they know that they can sell that home.
Is that true, that they're gonna charge those fees in advance? Did it go through?
It's still being discussed. Yesterday was a word. That was the first conversation. But they're acknowledging, and many cities over the past 10 years have been stuck in this clear 20-acre development, 40-acre development, the builder, and then economics changes, which is what's happening here in Palm Coast right now. Inventory's high, interest rates are high, people are not a good time to sell your home in Palm Coast, by the way.
People aren't flocking here like
Oh,
they
no.
were a couple years
They're
ago.
leaving. They're leaving faster than they're
So
coming.
these areas are just going to sit.
A couple more good hurricanes, and
Real estate
insurance
taxes
rates are going to
are
go up.
driving
Our
people
water
away.
is already sky high. A young couple can't afford to buy a house in this day and
The
age.
hurricane, I don't know what the current status is
Ian.
with FEMA, but it could be like they're not going to.
There is no
Not going to be,
FEMA.
not going to be
There's no
FEMA,
FEMA,
not going to be
So why
FEMA.
would you buy a home on Lincoln or
yeah.
close to it?
Well, there was a conversation this morning about those tornadoes that hit Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and then a reporter asked the
Weather service.
governor if he plans on declaring an emergency and getting help from the government, and his response was, "We're looking into that." Because in Arkansas 2 months ago,
They turned 'em down.
they had a request and met every requirement, and Trump
Shut down.
said, "No, you're on your own."
Yeah, that's
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
that,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Arkansas
Yeah.
is heavily
Yeah.
red.
Right. Huckabee
So-
was, his fair-haired girl,
These
and she
red
got turned
states,
down.
They put him there.
That's
They're going to
again,
pay for it.
Once again, an example of the chicken voting for Colonel Sanders.
Okay, we
It
think about
does, yeah,
Florida.
it does make sense. Yeah.
We get more than one of those in a year.
and we're in
We'd
trouble.
wipe out the state
Yeah,
budget.
yeah, we're in
Well,
trouble.
there wouldn't
They
be
wouldn't.
any expenditures.
Yeah, they won't
They
send
wouldn't
it.
cover it. They would let the insurance do whatever. And I was watching a
they're
program
bailing now anyway.
yesterday, and they were interviewing some people down in that part of Florida below Tampa. There's still wreckage in
On
the
the Gulf
waterway.
of- on the
There's
Gulf
still
of
docks
Mexico.
and boats flipped over.
Yeah, it's not all
and
cleaned
it's
up.
been
No,
years
no,
from
nothing's
now.
been done. Very little has been done.
Yeah.
At any
so-
rate, we'll continue this discussion next week. The location to be announced or to be determined.
And when is the next
thank
theater
you.
thing from the city? They should be
Tuesday,
listed under
9
the
o'clock.
creative.
Yeah, thank you
and
all.
arts.
Right.
I'm sorry?
Culture Commission should list them under the theater as a. cultural-
Yeah, look for these meetings online and on Monday.
Wherever you get your local podcast.
Yes,
We
so
are
when-
now available
Yeah, in
audio
fact,
only as
I
a
found
Yeah,
it on
please explain that.
Amazon.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
there you go.
Okay, so we're expanding. This has become we've become more popular. I hope we don't suffer from our success, but people are interested. Tell your family and friends because when the episode drops, I get the notice from Al, and I forward it to all of you and to several hundred other people. Listen, make a comment. Leave a comment is also
It's
important.
always nice. Yeah.
So thank you very much, and we'll do it again next week.